This tutorial will show you how to quickly create an Amazon EC2 instance. What this will allow you to do is, say that you have a website, you can upload your website to Amazon, and then Amazon will host your website for you. What you need to be familiar with is using terminal commands, and for this tutorial specifically using Linux, Ubuntu. So this OS that I'm using right now is called Elementary OS. It's based off of Ubuntu. So we've got all the tools necessary to roll this EC2 instance. So the first thing that you want to do is go to aws.amazon.com and create a new account if you haven't done so already. I have already created an account, so I'm just going to log into my management console. Then I'll sign in. And this is what I guess the management console looks like. Now, before you actually create an instance, you want to think about where your clients are going to be accessing your website from. If a lot of your clients or website users are based in Northern California, for example, then you want to select Northern California as your server location. If your users are going to be from, say, Hong Kong, then maybe Singapore would be a better location to select. But for my purposes, it's going to be Northern California. So you select that, you go to EC2, and you want to launch an instance. And for this one, we're going to select Ubuntu. So it's actually going to create a server with Ubuntu installed on it. Amazon provides a bunch of different instances. The micro instance is the smallest, the slowest instance, but it's free for a year. So it's good for testing out websites. If you have a larger website with, way more requirements, it needs to be fast, it needs lots of CPU, lots of RAM, then you may want to go for something that's larger. But for testing, micro is great. I'm actually going to use a small, which is not free. Go to next. Everything's okay, just next, next. Now this is the most important step in my opinion. By default, all these Amazon instances have the HTTP port number 80 closed. So Amazon, once you actually set up your instance, it'll give you a URL that you can then use to go to your website. But if you do not open port 80, you go to that URL and nothing will show up. And you'll be scratching your head wondering why your website's not showing up. If you haven't added this rule, then that would be why, because port 80 is closed. So you want to go to HTTP, and now that your HTTP port number 80 is added, you'll be able to go to that URL and actually load something. Okay, everything looks good. Now it'll ask you to create a key. What this key does is it actually allows you to authenticate yourself when you're trying to log into your server. So you can create an existing key pair or use you can create a new key, or you can use an existing key pair if you've already got other instances going on. So for us, let's just create a new key pair. Let's just name it. You can name this anything. My website key. Okay, and then you want to download the key to somewhere safe on your hard drive. Be sure to read this message. This is the only time that you're going to be able to download your key. So definitely, after you download it, save it in a very safe place. So in my case, I downloaded it to my default download directory, and I'm actually going to cut it and put it into my websites directory, like so. And now I can go to launch the instance. Okay, the instance is now launching. Currently it's in the launching phase, so it's not accessible. And once you go to your actual dashboard, this is the instance that we just launched. It's currently in the initialization stage. So we need to wait until the checks have passed before we can start using it. Great. So our instance that we just launched is running, and all status checks have been passed. What we want to do first is maybe just assign a name to this instance. That way it will allow us to easily identify which instance we're looking at. So we'll just name this my website. So one thing that you want to do probably almost immediately is set up an elastic IP. The reason for that is, say that you want to stop this instance. You want to stop it from running for whatever reason. When you stop it, the IP address of this instance will actually be a different IP address when you restart your instance. And this can be a problem if you've got some things running that depend on the IP address of your instance staying the same. So we'll go to Elastic IP. What this will do is basically tell Amazon, hey, do not change this IP address whenever we start and stop this instance. So go Elastic IP. You want to allocate new address. Yes, allocate. Okay, so you've got this new IP address, and you want to associate it with one of your instances. And this is it, my address, or my website, and then associate. Okay, great. So now this instance will always be associated with this address. This is exactly what you want. This is basically the bare minimum for setting up an instance, and then later on in another tutorial we can go through how to actually log into this instance and then how to deploy apps to this instance.